If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
So as you may know by now, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from Russia to Germany, serving natural gas up, or was planning to, is now destroyed, as opposed to the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, which was operational but stopped by Russia a few weeks back in retaliation for obvious reasons. Why would you be providing natural gas and resources to a country that doesn't like you and is sanctioning you and causing you grief? So, here we are wondering who exactly it is that did this. Now, of course, it's not shocking that when we look at Western media, of course, the narrative is this is all Russian. Russia did this to themselves. They did this so that they could say the U.S. did this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, any other narrative is considered Russian propaganda, and you should just be quiet. But of course, we can't be quiet, so we're curious. And frankly speaking, when I first heard this and I started to look into this, I started to piece together the things that I had known already about the Ukraine situation and about the different media aspects of this situation. Now, if we know one thing for sure, it's that Western media has been lying through its teeth through the entire process. Now, how do we know this? How do we know this to be true? Well, there were only dozens of fake stories being propagated by Western media, and perhaps you think that I'm just throwing that out there, but you might remember some of them. So in case you don't remember any of them, I brought a few up. Kim Iverson put together a nice little montage back in the day. We ourselves, at the beginning of this war, got caught out there. You might remember the fake Russian tank story. Well, you know what? That wasn't the only one.
Bild, a political news outlet in Germany, shared a video of what looked to be a horrific bombing by the Russians in Kiev during one of their broadcasts. But it turns out the footage was from a 2015 chemical explosion in Tianjin, China. Newsmax used a photo of a crying older woman standing in front of her devastated home with the caption, "The current devastation in Ukraine." But the photo was from 2015.
The point that I want to make here is that there are two of all of the stories, and literally there were dozens. I mean, there were so many that it was impossible to keep track of them. And I chose those because they make the point. And the point is also made on the fact that there are two main narratives that were trying to be perpetrated by all of these fake stories. The focuses were, number one, Russia's evilly killing civilians and going after people, which if you know anything about the situation, you'd realize that that was highly unlikely, as Russians and Ukrainians are a very complicated situation where many Ukrainians consider themselves still Russian and many don't, and it's a quagmire. So the idea, though, that they would go in there and just start murdering civilians made no sense. But that was the narrative, and so it went on. And the other portion of this is that once this started, people like myself, among many others, began to question the entire Ukraine picture. So the question was posed to me, and hence I asked the question, could this possibly be a part? This makes more sense to me that it would be tied in with the World Economic Forum and the global sociopaths, because everything about a war in Ukraine creates what they've been trying to achieve: an energy crisis, a food crisis, and an economic crisis. In the end, this helps to create the energy crisis. It does push along the economic crisis, and the food crisis could or could not be, depending on what we end up finding out in the end regarding biolabs and whether or not H1 virus, the bird flu virus, was actually created in one of those. We don't know this, but we do know that those labs were creating viruses that were very harmful to livestock. All right, with this gain-of-function type research. This has been acknowledged by U.S. officials. So in the end, we know those things happen. And because we know those things happen, I inherently started asking myself, could this be a part of it? And of course, I'm not the only one asking. So when I started thinking that and I started looking into that, I realized many others were asking. And what was the narrative at that time? Absolute. This is crazy talk. These are conspiracy theorists. There's no way that this is connected in any way with globalists. With the globalist movement or with WEF or with the UN. And then the parliamentary members slipped.
Right now, it's a critical time because we know that we not only fight for Ukraine, we fight for this new world order for the democratic countries.
Right. So she went ahead and just said that, not realizing that she was going to be dropping a bomb by saying so. And in doing that, it of course went nuts and everyone started saying, wait a minute. Is this Ukrainian government a part of this whole picture? I think her response to a question that wasn't asking her that, she offered that information, and frankly, that's the Ukrainian parliament. Now, there are plenty of questions about Zelensky, who wanted to just step away and say, hey, let's not be a part of NATO, let's just put an end to this, and NATO would not allow that. And then the question becomes, why on earth would NATO so badly want Ukraine in NATO, and so badly that they're willing to create all of these crises across the board? And in particular, the German people are going to be feeling this worse than anyone come this winter. And I can tell you that situation alone, Ukraine being a part of NATO is not important enough to allow to happen. It's just not important enough. And the reality of the matter is, if we decide they're not going to be a part of NATO, this all ends. And so you have to ask these questions because it doesn't make any sense. And then that brings us to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So this is a pipeline that was about to be finished or was being worked on to complement the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, which was providing natural gas directly to Germany, and Germany had been benefiting from this for quite some time. Now, because Germany is now joined the sanction party and has become hostile to Russia, Russia has now said, no, we're shutting this pipeline off. This is nonsense. We're not going to continue to provide energy services to a country that doesn't like us. Whether you agree or disagree with any side, that's a rational position to take if you're leading a country. If someone hates you, we could learn a lesson from this in the United States. If someone hates you, you don't give them stuff. This is just how things work. Now, Germany is more than ready, at least their leadership, are more than ready to put their people on the burner, no pun intended. It's going to be very cold there. There's going to be no heat there, and people are going to be suffering greatly. And the leadership in Germany are okay with this.
If I give the promise to people in Ukraine, we stand with you as long as you need us, then I want to deliver, no matter what my German voters think, but I want to deliver to the people of Ukraine.
They feel like Ukraine becoming a part of NATO is so important that it's worth the potential of people freezing to death. And don't get it twisted. That's the kind of energy shortage that they're going to be dealing with. They don't have the natural resources that we do. Now, would NATO be thinking, hey, maybe we should build some nuclear in Germany? It is the cleanest type of energy you could have, by the way. But no, they're hell-bent on solar, wind, and other stuff that's not ready for prime time. That's what they want to utilize. Okay? So I go looking into this, and I say to myself, let me see what the mainstream media is saying. And so as I look around the mainstream media, one thing that stuck out to me was that there were an inordinate amount of attacks on Tucker Carlson. And I'm like, what does Tucker Carlson have to do with this whole thing? So then I go and I look up Tucker Carlson, and I find a video made after they were all dogging him, where he actually was commenting on the fact that they were all going after him, and actually made his own collage. It saved me the time of people going after Tucker Carlson.
Fox News host Tucker Carlson irresponsibly claiming the United States was responsible for the leak.
Other than Putin and Tucker Carlson, it seems pretty clear that everyone knows that Putin did this himself.
And Tucker Carlson, this past week, actually once again directly repeated Russian propaganda, suggesting it was somehow the United States behind the attack on the Nord Stream pipeline. How real is that movement? Is it growing?
And this is how it went through all the, I mean, there's more clips like that. You know how it works. Once the media gets on a message, everybody gets on that message. And it's apparent that Tucker Carlson seems to be the only person who actually spoke about this and said what was unpopular, except he's not. There was someone else who actually spoke about this as well. Before I get to him, I want you to understand those clips of mainstream media that I just showed you were all lefties. Well, it's not all lefties. You see, here's how it works. And I'll give you a clip from Fox News to make the point. But the fact of the matter is, when an issue is big enough on the globalist agenda, this whole game and charade that they play with you about there being a right and a left and they're all opposed and, you know, it all goes away. Everybody gets in lockstep on the message when that happens. So here's a Republican and a Democrat giving their opinions on what they think is going on. Of course, they have zero evidence, by the way, of anything. But here's what they think is going on.
John Kirby with the National Security Council was on earlier, in no uncertain terms said the U.S. was not behind and a proxy of the U.S. was not behind the explosion on the Nord Stream pipeline. From your perspective, both of you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. This is the last thing that we want to raise gas prices further in Europe. It's pretty obvious this is a Russian sabotage operation.
And for the people, Congressman Stewart, that say, why would Russia do that on its own pipeline? What do you say?
Well, then the people who are suggesting the U.S., that is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants.
All right, Brett, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to go ahead and answer. The idea that that's exactly what Vladimir Putin wants is an absurdity and an insult to the intelligence of anybody walking this earth. The fact that all of these people are lockstep on this message is an embarrassing moment for the United States. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment. Now, there is one person, at least outside of Tucker and apparently myself, who are asking questions about this without fear of being called some Putin puppet or some Putin propaganda spreader, super spreader. And that's Jeffrey Sachs. He's an economist at Columbia University, and he was on Bloomberg, and there was a short clip that Tucker showed on the episode I was on, that piece that I was watching from him, and I went back and found it and watched the entire thing, and it's interesting to listen to this man speak. It was completely off script from Bloomberg what they were expecting to get from this man when they brought him in, which made it just an absolute pleasure to watch. So let's listen to Jeffrey Sachs when they ask him about what he thinks is going on. Now, they asked him a question about the European economy and where they think it's going, and then he just went off on his own.
Well, Europe is in a very, very sharp economic downturn. The European economy is getting hammered by the sudden cutoff of energy. And now, to make it definitive, the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S. and Poland. This is
Jeff,
speculation.
we got to stop there. That's quite a statement as well. Why do you feel that was a U.S. action? What evidence do you have of that?
So now, understand, they were not ready for that, right? They weren't ready for that. I'm gonna hit this up in a second, but you could just see that they were not ready for this. And I want you to pay attention because there's another clip from him that I'm going to play, and he's basically making the point to these doodadoos that, you know what? I'm going off Western message. I'm going off message. The rest of the world thinks the U.S. did it. We're the only people. We're on an island. We're in an information bubble. Everybody else on Earth thinks the U.S. was the one who perpetrated this crime. Okay, and he doesn't have any problem saying it. And the folks on Bloomberg were just stunned.
Well, first of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. Helicopters, military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, were circling over this area. We also had the threats from the United States earlier in this year that one way or another, we are going to end Nord Stream.
But understand what he said right there. So he asked him, "What evidence do you have?" Like, he had to stop him when he went rogue and started telling what he really thinks and believes and what he's hearing around the world. So when he did that, and he said, "Well, what evidence do you have?" And then, bam, he just dropped the evidence right now. He hit him with both circumstantial and and facts with the radar evidence of the helicopters that were seen circling the area that were not normally stationed there. And then he went ahead and pointed out a simple reality that our own president and commander-in-chief had actually threatened this back in February and was pretty clear. Now I want you to listen to this quote from Biden and then listen to the shock from the reporter after he says this, after he says the first piece of this, because she's like, well, how would you go about doing that?
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Now you could hear the holy craps going on inside the deep state when he made that comment, right? Because Biden's not all there. We all know this. So he just goes, hey, heard that, hey, we'll take out the, well, that's my take on it. That's how I read that. It was a clear threat. There's no way to take that other than it being a threat. All right? There's no way to take that. It's not like that's an out of context quote. That was his response to the question in its entirety. And he straight up said, don't worry about it. She was shocked. She's like, well, Germany's operating this thing and Russia owns it. Like, how is this? Well, you know what? Don't worry about it. We'll make it happen. And he's basically just telling them. He's basically telling you. Like, if it goes down, this was before they invaded. And he was saying, if they do, that pipeline's done. But yet we still hold on to this narrative that it's obviously Russian propaganda. Like no one has gone out of no administration in my lifetime has gone out of their way as much as this one to make Russia look like the freaking good guy, because they're not a good guy. But it's like when your guys are lying to you and you don't know, that they're lying to you. You don't know that the other guys are lying to you, but you think they are, but you don't know. You don't even really know what they're saying. But you know for 100% fact that your people are lying. There's no, it's beyond a doubt. I don't care how many badges and medals the people that come on these do-to-do shows go ahead and wear and how highly respected they are. The reality of the matter is there's no way that these things add up. There's no way that their narrative makes any freaking sense. You don't have to be a 5-star general to understand BS when it's being served to you in this kind of quantity. But yet, lo and behold, here we are. But Jeffrey Sachs is not done yet, right? So I just wanted to validate what he meant with that Biden quote when he said that we've already threatened them, right? And not only have we threatened them, but our Secretary of State has chimed in as well.
We also have a remarkable statement by Secretary Blinken last Friday in a press conference. He says, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a strange way to talk if you're worried about the piracy on international infrastructure of vital significance. So I know this runs counter to our narrative. You're not allowed to say these things in the West. But the fact of the matter is, all over the world, when I talk to people, they think the U.S. did it. Just to tell you, and by the way, even reporters on our papers that are involved tell me privately, yeah, well, of course, but it doesn't show up in our media.
I counted 6 times that she tried to cut him off, and he just blew through that. He was like, nope, I'm saying this, and I'm getting it out there. That you're all full of crap. And you know what? Even your own reporters are telling me on the sly that they know what went down here, but that doesn't show up in any of the media. In the end, when you look at these things, you gotta make your own decision, right? I could just I come to my own conclusions, and I put the information that bring me to my conclusions to you, and then you can go ahead and make the decision. But just so you know, the Secretary of State Blinken absolutely said that.
Ultimately, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity to once and for all remove the dependence on Russian energy. and thus to take away from Vladimir Putin the weaponization of energy as a means of advancing his imperial designs. That's very significant, and that offers tremendous strategic opportunity for the years to come.
How coincidental that it offers that strategic opportunity. Now, aside from the fact that we all know who sees crisis as opportunity, right? We all know what group that is. But in the end, what makes this opportunity particularly creepy is that it falls in line with the crises that they're trying to create. Now, let's take a look at what these doodadoos have created in the form of crises since the beginning of this madness, which really goes back to COVID. They have used the pandemic to destroy the economy and create economic crisis. Every time you hear them say, we've learned from the effects of what that pandemic has done. No, that pandemic didn't do anything. That it's the leadership in this global cabal or whatever the hell it is who caused the economic crisis. COVID didn't shut down restaurants. They did. COVID didn't shut down the economy. They did. All right? COVID didn't cause all the deaths from people who didn't go to the hospital with other ailments like heart attacks and things of that nature or heart problems because they couldn't get in or were afraid of COVID. These people did. Okay? And that's one. COVID did not create food crises. These people did. COVID did not cause laws to be passed against fertilizer to shut down half the farming in the most major agricultural producers in the world. These people did. These are the same people. All right, COVID didn't cause the financial crisis, by the way, and inflation to be where it is today. These people did. And these are the very same people who want to control all of this creepy technology that's coming down the road. And they want to be in full control of it. And they're telling you that in the name of the climate cult, that it's all worth it. And that they should be the ones to make these decisions. You can't screw things up worse than this bunch of doodadoos has done so far. And they want to go ahead and take over the whole thing. If ever there was a need for nationalism in every nation on this earth, it is now. Every nation needs to take care of its own first. And then, once it's taken care of, then we begin, helping others, global trade resumes, all of it. But this idea that somehow we're better off the way they're doing things and we're better off in this interconnected madness where one nation goes down, it's like Christmas lights. When one light goes out, the whole freaking strand goes. Well, then we develop lights that, you can lose one light and the rest of them are good and you can pull a fuse from another one and make it work. But no, we insist on using the one that makes the whole strand go out. And then they call it brilliant, and these are experts that do this. No, nationalists, everyone needs to go back to their own nation. Everyone needs to, we're all proud of where we live. We're all proud of where we come from. And the fact of the matter is, and I've been talking to quite a few people now from the UK, Australia, etc. It's not, as proud as Americans are, I know, I get it, I see you out there and how proud you guys are of your own nations. And the fact of the matter is, the United States is in the lead right now, and there's nowhere more important when it comes to stopping this madness than here. And the way that we stop this, and the way that every other nation stops this, is by taking control of your own country first. And making sure that these crazy doctrines, whether they're occultist or whatever the hell they are, that they cannot move forward. In the United States, we know how that gets done. Or at least anyone who follows this channel knows how that gets done. And that gets done through Article 5, the calling of a convention of states for proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States. If you are not aware, and many, many people aren't, so you may have heard this a million times, you're going to have to hear it again because many, many people aren't. We have 19 states that are already on board. We need 34 to be on board to make 2/3. You can find out where your state is in the process by going to www.thepatriotthinktank.com. Go to our website /COS, thepatriotthinktank.com/COS, COS. That'll take you directly to the page. All right, you can go there. There's a quick explainer on Article 5. There's a link to sign the petition for your state, and there's there's sections of states that have passed, states that are pending, and states that don't give a crap. And you can pick where your state is and then go sign the petition and figure out exactly once you sign it what you can do to help, because that will take you to COS Action's website. They started this movement some 9 years ago, and they're the ones that have really ran the ball for the last 9 years and have helped us get to the place we are now. Now it's up to the rest of America to finally catch up. It's not getting any better than this. All right, this is it. Right now, the issues on the table are term limits, fiscal restraints on the federal government, and the last one is government overreach. Are those things going to fix everything, cabal? No, but let me explain to you what they will do. All right, number one, term limits will eliminate half of that frickin' doo-doo group that are embedded into our Congress. They only like the old ones. Those people will all be gone. Number two, fiscal restraints. They cannot execute modern monetary theory if fiscal restraints are placed on the government. If you think that they look at your tax dollars as valuable, you're crazy. The way that they look at your tax dollars is through modern monetary theory. They're in their heads, it's just they just print whatever they need. They just print it. And if you don't believe me, go look at the price of meat right now. Gasoline here in California is $6 a gallon right now. You know why? Well, the gas is multifaceted, but the reality is everything is more expensive, and it's because they printed too much damn money. But that's how they see it. They don't see it the way you see it. Trust me when I tell you. I've done episodes on modern monetary theory. Go back and check them out. They're organized in the YouTube channel. Now, that being said, the last one is government overreach, and government overreach speaks for itself. No more mandates. None of this OSHA garbage. None of this Department of Education poisoning our children. None of this stuff. All of those agencies are done. Done. They could still exist, but they'll be advisory only. The only people that should be making laws that are punishable, I don't care, you don't call it a regulation and pretend it's not a law. Anybody who makes a punishable law needs to be accountable to the people via election. None of these people are. There's not one thing that any of those organizations do that states can't handle for themselves. Not one thing. Nothing. All right? But that being said, beyond the three issues, what they will do, okay, what will happen with the precedent that gets set, all right, doesn't matter what passes, what doesn't, okay, the convention will convene, they'll bring up on those topics, whatever amendments they iron out, and they'll bring them to propose them for ratification. They'll need to be ratified by 38 states. That's not an easy task, right? 3/4 of the states need to ratify this. So there's a chance that some of these things don't get ratified or whatever. That's not the point. The point is that from that moment on, all of the people, all of the grassroots, the millions of Americans who are stepping up and the millions more who will step up in the coming months and year, all of those people still exist. And now they know who their representative is. And now they're engaged. And now they're playing the game of local politics. And now, if the federal government wants to get out of line again, wants to do some doo-doo move that the WEF is asking them to do, like keep our borders open and not deal with that, all right, well, we can't deal with the border issue in the current convention. But now that we've shown that this power exists, keep being derelict at the border, because what's going to happen is another convention will get called. And this one will be on the topic of whether or not the federal government should continue to have the responsibility of managing our borders, since it's been so incredibly ineffective at it. Like, this power is endless. It's not easy. It's not easy to do. It's not a simple snap your finger. You don't want to be amending the Constitution easily. The founders made it a challenging process regardless. It cannot get done without a ton of agreement. But that being said, there is a ton of agreement on these issues. More than 50% of everybody agree with the current topics, and more than 50% of everybody, I'm sure, agree with the border situation. So that is the solution. Head to the website, get it done. There's only so much longer you can sit on your keister and wait for everything to go away. It's not going away. Superman is not coming. There's nothing you're going to do in an election in anywhere that's going, well, and certainly in the United States, that's going to change the things that we need to change. Nothing. There's no one out there. There is no Superman. Not Trump, not DeSantis, nobody. They can all get in. Yeah, for the border, sure. They're better for the border than this guy because this guy's freaking completely absent. But in the end, if we want to fix the major issues, if we want to fix there's nothing that Trump can do for term limits. There's nothing that DeSantis can do for government overreach. There's nothing that these people can, I mean, they could not use it as overreach, but they can't do anything to stop the next do from doing it. That power doesn't exist, and the system is so structurally broken, there's nothing that will get done. And the debt will be, the debt didn't slow down under Trump. It increased the same way it increases with everybody. These are our issues to fix. We're the ones that need to fix this. And by doing so, all of these nuts that are floating around the world hoping to take America down will be strictly incapable of doing so. And in fact, by not being able to do so, we will take every other nation and give them the strength to be able to resist. Because once we give in, once we fall, the first domino is gone. That's it. Now the dominoes just fall all the way down, and that's it. And there won't be anything anybody else can do to stop it. It's about solutions. It's about playing offense. That's what it's about. Until next time, I'm out.